Hi Movies and Suckers, Chris here, and I'm hosting the first of our Panic Fest themed episodes. Panic Fest is a horror, sci-fi, thriller film festival that shows the Kansas City screening armor every year, and it's been considered one of the world's best genre fests, in the world, several times over. I am talking to the group who made Reviewer in this episode, to interview with them. Reviewer is a movie, and here is the synopsis. Tensions rise when a stripper and a religious protester are trapped together in a peep show booth and must come together to survive the apocalypse in 1980 Chicago. I saw it Friday. I thought it was great. I love this movie. I got to talk to Luke Boyce, the director, Mike Moresi, who's one of the writers, Kato Aas, who played Angie, and Shayna Shruten, who played Sally, and I got to talk to them about the movie that was made. If you're in Kansas City, I'm posting this on the 4th, a reviewer is showing again tomorrow, the 5th, at Screen on the Armor at 9:15. So cancel your plans and go see that. It's just part of Panic Fest, because I love Panic Fest. It's my favorite part of the year. I did record this in the hotel lobby of their hotel, so you hear background noise like chairs being scraped by, phones ringing, people walking in and out, but it's still a great interview, and I had a great time talking to them. So this is my interview with the group who made Reviewer, and I see you guys later. And one more thing, guys. I want to mention that Panic Fest, you can be found at panicfilmfest.com. If you guys missed this year, you can always go wait till next year. They have virtual tickets, so wherever you're in the country, you can see some Panic Festivals. But panicfilmfest.com. You will find out more of the festival there. And I'm sorry, but here's the interview now.
It's a show by Chris and Neil with all great movies. They are the real deal. We watch them all, so you don't have to. It's movies that don't suck and some that do.
So first off, guys, I want to thank you for taking the time to sit down with me. It's really thrilled to do this.
Yeah,
Thanks for being on.
Of course.
I'm going to nerd out here for a second. I had the mispleasure of seeing a reviewer last night, Panic Fest, and the story says really fit the atmosphere of that movie, so I was really immersive. So I'm like super general here. Luke, like what inspired this movie? What was the impetus for it?
So it was mostly Tim Seeley came up with the idea. Kind of pitched it to me, pitched it to Michael, and we loved it. I mean, right away. I mean, Tim is really good at these high concept ideas, right? So he can pitch something in a sentence, and it was like, a stripper and a religious protester are stuck together in a peep show booth, and you're just like, yeah, okay, we'll do this.
A dancer and a priest.
Yes.
Yeah, that's how it was Amazed last night. I was like, oh, Sally's a priest now.
Last night someone called it like a apocalyptic My Dinner with Andre.
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
I think that needs to go on.
What was it? Dinner with Andre meets what was it? They said.
What did you say?
Apocalyptic, I think is what he said.
Apocalyptic dinner meets Andre.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, that was it.
Yeah. But anyway, so Tim, I mean, it's pretty much mostly Tim. And again, like I kind of said, Tim and I had been talking about sort of like doing something, we both grew up in the 80s during the Satanic Panic. Yeah. And I was like, I grew up very religious. So like we've talked.
So you connected with that kind of.
I did. Well, like when I was a kid, like I wasn't allowed to have like He-Man toys or anything like that. My parents were like really into stuff. Like the Satanic Panic hit me at home. So I've known about it my whole life. And so we kind of joked about this idea of like, well, what if you make something where you're like, it's a fantasy world where the Satanic Panic actually is like, they're actually real. Right? Like what they're saying is going to happen. And that's sort of like something a sandbox Tim wanted to play in. And so I think this is where he kind of was able to do that. And then it just kind of, he got with Michael, and I think it just evolved into this really interesting, story about two really interesting people. And I can let, Michael can kind of talk more about that. But.
So Tim had a great pitch. And, we took what he had, and when I say we, I mean, Luke, Tim, and I, and we evolved it into what it is. And, we wanted to tell, like Luke is saying, we wanted to tell a story about, Satanic Panic in the 80s and movies that we love, like these kind of VHS horror movies that we grew up on,
Yeah.
you know, and capture that spirit. But at the same time, and Luke talked about this last night, one of the things that we, aspire to as storytellers, I guess, say, directors, writers, and performers that we have with us, we want to be earnest. You know, we don't ever want to make things that are just like, nudging you with the elbow on their side, saying, "Hey, look how dumb this is." You know, like I think that's a very pointless exercise. So we wanted to, we strive to go the opposite direction. Like, earnest doesn't always mean serious. It doesn't have to be serious, but we have to care. We have to be
absolutely.
genuinely trying. And at the core of the story, really, like we talked about, I think Tim is good at good story thematics, and I'm good at good story pitches, and I'm good at like good thematic pitches. And I think the story is about two different people becoming friends.
Right.
And that's really what it is.
That's
the story.
I noticed this thing had a lot of heart, and I'm a big sucker for that type of thing, whether it be a horror film or not. But I was really impressed with you two, specifically because being so different, I ended up caring equally about each of your characters each once. So that brings me to what gravitated to these roles. I mean, the pitch itself is amazing as it is, but what makes you care about these roles and throw yourself into them so much?
I'm a huge fan of the 80s, and I am a bit more of a recent horror fan, I think, in the last, 8-ish years of my life.
So, what stuff have you been watching?
So I watch all sorts of genres. I love a demonic possession. I love a haunting. I love a monster movie. I love a slasher movie. I love all the 80s camp movies, and I will watch Friday the 13th on repeat if I can. And I just thought, I'm fascinated by the Satanic Panic. I'm a huge D&D nerd. I DM my own campaigns, so when there were D&D references in there, I was like, sold. But I also just think that this was not only like an 80s thematic movie, it had the Satanic Panic elements to it, but we brought it into the modern era of, we are talking about sex work as work. We are talking about 100%. Like strippers are real people and deserve to be treated as such, and we are talking about what it means to be queer in the 80s and what it means to not have that support. So here are these two marginalized people, a sex worker and a queer person, coming together and realizing that they really do have common ground. And there's like a big part of me now, like when we were shooting it, we weren't playing it this way, but when we had one moment where Sally gets like pulled through the wall, and we had this moment where we kind of meet in the middle, and we had mentioned keeping it in there. We mentioned keeping it in there because like we did it and we were like, but we weren't aiming necessarily for this kind of undertone. But like when you get to the end of it, my vision as an audience member is like, oh, I ship this. Like 10 out of 10 ship this. Like eventually these two are probably going to end up being on like an enemies to lovers trajectory. But
I think for me, when I first read the script, I could visualize the whole thing. And I think that's always a clue for me if I really like material, if I can see it while I'm reading it. And I could see these two people in these rooms. And as I continued to like read more and dive into Sally, I was like, at first I was like, who is she? I'm not quite sure. But then I was like, oh, she's a misunderstood person that desperately wants to be seen. And like, I don't know who can't relate to that. And just going on a journey of like trying to be seen by somebody that she's actually, I mean, from my point of view, been in love with. And like going through that journey, and I could relate to that so hard, and like could visualize it, could feel it in my bones. So I was like, this is a no-brainer.
Just so you guys, I thought you guys were fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I saw you as characters. It's like no point that I feel like you're forcing it. It felt like so natural.
Thank you so much.
So I would want to mention, I absolutely love the music in this. Very 80s sounding. Seems to how did you guys, I guess, speak more to that?
Are you talking about the
score?
The score specifically?
Yeah.
So the score was done by a guy named Alex Cuervo, who did Scare Package. And Pale Door. Phenomenal. It's so good to work with. I mean, he just got it right away. And it was interesting because we had actually created a synth score. I was like, well, that has to be synth, right? so we had that for most of the film, but we realized that the point at which you go into the tunnels, the movie changes.
100%, yeah.
It becomes like an adventure tale, and so we actually redid
Act 2.
all of that.
Act 2. I leaned over to Shane. Act 2.
Yeah, I mean it's a two-parter. So we actually he came in and was like, I think we should do this, and he started coming in with all these really weird instruments, just like playing a bicycle tire like a cello. Like all this weird crap that just sounded so strange in that section, and he's just he's absolutely brilliant. So we got super lucky that Alex, and then we actually had there's the song that plays when we first see her walking up after the cold open. That was actually written specifically for film. We were we needed like a hair metal. This is like a really great hair metal song.
It just sounded like classic immediately.
Yes. So there's a guy. There's a band. So apparently hair metal. I've discovered this in the past few years is a huge genre in like Sweden and like Norway.
Yeah, totally.
And there's a lot of really great bands coming out of there. A lot of people know that now because of Peacemaker.
Yeah, sure.
Which has some new hair metal bands. And so one of them, a band called Enforcer, wrote and recorded the song specifically for that. They were like, what year is it? 1987. Okay, they like watched the movie and they literally just wrote the song specifically for that song.
That's amazing.
And I've like listened to that song 1,000 times. I love it. It's called Satan's Sinner, which is just
Yes,
You can remix it as dancer and priest.
and the music is important. So then
We need to do their music video.
Yeah,
Correct.
I have asked them, yes. And then lastly, Gunship. I don't know if you're familiar with Gunship at all. They're the ones that did the song that she dances to.
Okay, yeah.
Called Dark All Day, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. An amazing synthwave band.
Yeah.
Huge. They're
They're out of the UK, right?
They are in the UK.
Yeah.
Phenomenal band. They just did they were just on the new Carpenter Brute album. Amazing musicians, and Tim and I are huge fans of them, and I just called them and was like, can we feature your music in this film? And they saw the materials, they sent them pitch materials and stuff like that, and they said absolutely. This was like during filming.
Yeah.
So we knew that we were going to
really
do the
cool.
dance. So she choreographed the song. You know, she
is
picked
really lucky
the song.
that-
Yeah, that was
Yeah,
amazing.
It was really cool because we were kind of talking about like what would Angie dance to, and like it was not the right genre, but the way that I was I always create soundscapes or like playlists for characters as I'm working on things, and there was a lot of Nine Inch Nails, like early Nine Inch Nails on there, and I was like, this is not the right decade, right?
Sure.
It's like '89 was when their first album came out, so we were talking a little bit about it, and Luke was like, check out Gunship. So I just listened through their tracks and I found Dark All Day, which is like very much Lost Boys. Like she even has a line at the end, "Good night, my Lost Boys." Right?
It's like an homage.
It's an
basically.
homage for sure. The sax is in there, like we
Yeah.
love it. But I listened to that song and I was like, "What do you think about this?" And he was like, "Let's go." And yeah, and then when we found out we actually got to feature it in the film, I was like, I get chills every time I hear that high whine right before the synth starts.
Oh
I'm
my
like,
god, yeah.
So yeah, I mean, to me the music made it super authentic. Like I felt like I was watching an 80s movie.
That's great because I mean, an interesting thing, like because the music is this was one thing I really wanted to do was because we're in the 80s, but it's an alternative 80s.
Sure,
right?
yeah.
It's not a real life 80s. So there was a sense that we wanted to build an 80s vibe without it we can't have any needle drops. Like we're not throwing actual 80s music in there. So the whole thing with Gunship, the synthwave, the score, the hair metal, it's all vibe, but it's not authentic from the era. So, and that was kind of important to sort of create this alternate reality.
Sure, yeah.
But I think it's almost better that way
I agree.
because, like, it goes back to our point of earnestness. Because when you drop in like a Def Leppard song, like
Right.
you're just being like the '80s, am I right?
Right. And that's a lot of movies.
No, that's a really good
today.
point, Mike.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. Like you've
really
created
good.
an entirely separate universe,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the music does immediately bring you into it. That feels familiar, but is like
Just slightly on its ear.
something that
yeah.
you're not quite sure because you haven't heard that for real. Yeah.
And then you learn how later in the film how different of a universe that we're in.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to mention there is a definitely color scheme for at least 2 parts of the movie, and so I really love that.
Get comfortable, guys.
I'm a big fan of Mandy. I don't know if you guys saw the movie from a couple of years ago. Mandy.
Mandy, yeah,
So
absolutely.
that had a lot of great color scheme. And I got that sort of feeling
Yeah.
in this movie, at least 2 different parts of it. So,
Yeah.
Was that a conscious decision, or were you just like, yeah?
I mean, Mandy for sure, but
Yeah.
also just like Rob and I Rob, my DP, and I really talked a lot about color, and we were like, if it were up to us, like we would just have every possible color you could have in this film. And one of the reasons we wanted to do the 80s was because, you know, and especially just like the strip club essentially was to be able to drench it in neon. I love neon in movies because, you know, neon. I think the thing that's great about neon in movies, the reason people take to it is because a lot of times when you're filming something, you have these palettes of black or gray, you know, and a lot of movies look that way because like the place we're at right now, it's a lot of gray.
Yeah.
But color shine, like if you look at these curtains here, there's very multicolored curtains. They cut through.
Yeah, yeah.
And neon does that. So
Yeah.
neon is a green that cuts through, or it's a red that cuts through, and it really draws your eye. And then we got really lucky in the sense that with Angie's booth, we could just do whatever we wanted because it's a stage.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? So that was super exciting. And I think the fact that we got to do that in film, you know, at least half the movie in there was really exciting. So for color, I mean, when we gave it to our colorist, he was like, I'm so excited because I never get to work with color like this. I have not worked with color like this in a long time.
Yeah.
And then it's really like, there's a point where it's just like, how far can you go with it before it's too much? Like you're just oversaturating everything and you have to pull back. But yeah, I don't know. I don't feel like, you know, I feel like, I feel like color is just underused a lot. I will always watch an early Technicolor film.
Sure.
Where they were like, when the technology finally came about, and they're like, we're using it.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, we're gonna, this is gonna look,
running.
look like a
Almost
kid
be
with
a
a
gimmick,
coloring
yeah.
book. Yeah, and I kind of like, I don't know, you put those on a new TV, and they're so striking and beautiful. Like, our eyes just love color. So I don't know. It's a big thing for me.
To that point, our Luke even had a conversation with the head of our wardrobe department, Hallie Sharp, who's phenomenal. And the bathing suit that I wear in the booth, we had talked about actually making the top silver. So we got a bathing suit, took the top off of it, and she made a silver lame one, so we could pick up the color.
Right.
Yeah.
So when it changed blue, when it changed red, we actually had that playing off like a mirror because that scene was so central. Also, let's talk about the bisexual lighting. Am I right?
Come on.
My living room looks just like that, to be honest.
I love it.
Yeah, we gotta get these
Mike looked at me like he just found this out about the.
I just did.
Did you just find
No,
this
I
out?
didn't know
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
No, I know
that
that.
was like
That's
a
really
whole
interesting.
conversation that we had that we wanted silver specifically in there to pick it up.
It was we got to
That's
do
really
a screen
cool.
test of your
Yeah.
outfit, and that was one of the best things we did
Yeah,
because we
I'm
figured
really
out
glad
right
we did
away that no, we needed reflection.
Yeah, it was such a good choice. So smart.
And the costumes in it were amazing.
Yeah,
So, you know,
Hallie is
like,
incredible.
Hallie
Hallie
is
is
so good.
next
Yeah,
level.
and it was so bizarre having a costume fitting during the pandemic because she literally showed up to our homes and was like, I left an IKEA bag on your porch. Please bring it inside. I will be in my car on FaceTime outside. And so I brought things into my home and tried them on while I was on FaceTime with her, and then sent them back and was like, this works,
So
this
she like took
doesn't.
screenshots on her phone and
Yeah,
sent them to
because like
Luke. And,
it was still, that was in probably June of 2020, and it was like, nobody can come into my house right now.
Yeah.
So have you guys been sitting on this thing for a couple of years? Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
We have.
So, which must have been insane, like just waiting so long.
The text threads of like, when are we gonna do it?
So much anticipation.
You have no idea what the release is like. Yeah. Oh
So,
my gosh.
knowing what you know now, are you glad you took on the project during the pandemic?
Yeah.
What's that?
You took on the project during the pandemic?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Early pandemic.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Are
this
you-
is making movies in the age of COVID for sure.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I think, and this is a testament mainly to the three of you, and I've said this before about Luke. I think one of the making movies is very complicated. Lots of things can go right, lots of things can go wrong, and you just never know. Even with the best script, or best cast, best intentions, best directors, you just never know what's going to come out on the other end. And the experience of this, and I was there on set for part of it, not all, but the experience of this, what ends up getting captured in the movie, and I've seen it multiple times, and the thing that I always love every time I watch it is that there is a energy to it and a great, like, there's just, Luke captured something with Shane and Kato that's just such a wonderful energy. It has such a feeling to it that I don't think you could have gotten any other time. I think it was just the way, and there's a lot of other backstory to like how this actually pieces came together to make Revealer work. It's like magical that like the luck after like I can't believe this is happening. That fell, these dominoes that made this happen. I think you see it. I think you see it and feel it on the screen. And I think if we'd done it a different way or a different time, I don't know. You know, that it would have been the same product. You know?
I don't know that the urgency would have necessarily been there, and I don't know about you, Shayna, but I was hungry for it because as soon as we heard about lockdown, like my whole career is performing, and I didn't know if I just lost an entire part of who I am as a person. And
it certainly felt like that, and like just the uncertainty and like, is this going to come back, and if it does, do I get to play, and just like having that be, I mean, like relatively so early into the pandemic.
Yeah, it really
like,
was.
Oh, okay.
It was.
Thank God.
Yeah, it was
Thank
like
God.
an oasis. It really was. It was a reminder of like, oh, not only will we be able to make it through this aspect of it, but we're going to come out like with blazing colors, and we're going to be on a next level of our career trajectories and our aspects as performers. I think this really did. It could not have skyrocketed us the way it did if we didn't have the situation of the pandemic. I think.
Yeah, and it was like we had to build the trust immediately.
Yeah.
There was no time not to, and
we were lucky that we were friends before. I think.
It's true. Kato and I did know each other before, which I think was really helpful. But we locked in really quick and like very fast with Luke. It just felt like it felt like immediate family, which I think is part of the luck of that. Just doesn't. It cannot happen on every set. And
and it doesn't happen on every set.
And I can't understate how important it is that, you know, I was a first time feature filmmaker. And to come in, to risk your safety, right, at the height of what was very scary time for a lot of people, for someone that they just didn't know. I mean, they had a script and they had a couple things to it, and that was it. The first conversation we ever had was when they were already in the building, right? So like it's a done deal. So I mean, it was huge for me just to be in a situation where, you know, that first few days was nerve-wracking because everybody was there risking their health, you know, to do this for an untested person. So, you know, that meant a lot to me for sure.
So, watching it, I saw parallels to what's happening now. Was that a conscious decision that add sort of political climate into the script itself?
Wait, I'm sorry.
The political climate, like in 2020.
Oh.
I mean, I don't know if it leaked in that way.
Trying to think.
I mean, we definitely had the line about
Russia.
I went line about Russia.
Even the liberal media.
The liberal media.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there is a lot of conversation.
There is. Yeah, I think it's more. I like to think of it more broadly. Like, the stuff that really sticks with me, that I hope sticks with people who watch, is the idea of judgment, and like and that's I think what's relevant today is that we live in an era that's very judgmental with social media, that you can smear people, destroy people, like that you don't even know, you know, like, and it's a scary thing. It's a scary weapon. It's a scary tool. I think the horror of this is like, you know, if you talk to people, if you get to know them, if you know their story and you know who they are, you can come to a better place of understanding. I mean, that's why I think, again, going back to the earlier thing, is the most beautiful thing about Revealer. It's like these are two different people who just talk to each other and listen to each other and say, oh, well, you're not what I thought you were, and we can be friends, you know? Like, it's okay. We may not agree on everything, and we may not completely see eye to eye on every single issue in life, culture, blah, 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 but that doesn't mean we still can't be friends, and we still can't share the same goals.
Oh, yeah.
Well, and I'll add to that, too, that one of my favorite things about the movie is that at the end, neither person is trying to change the other person.
Right.
Right.
They become
Acceptance.
friends as who they are.
Yeah.
and that to me is really important. And I think, like you said, like social media is this thing where we all thought the internet was going to come and it was going to bring us all together, right? Because we could all talk to each other. But what it seemed like it's done instead is it's made all the cliques and all the, it's made us more tribal. So we create our bubbles and we create the things where we're only hearing from the voices that we want to hear and all that other stuff. And it's hard. And I'm not saying that everyone's right or everyone's wrong about everything, but there is sort of this lost sense of really understanding what's happening in that other person's life.
Sure.
I think it's a really important part of this movie where we find something out about Sally that we don't know, and it's through the process of experience. And we find something out about Angie as well.
Sure.
And so I think that's a really important part of the movie.
Yeah.
I would say too that it's easy for people, especially with social media and online, to almost create archetypes of people, and I think that's exactly what Sally and Angie have done. Is like when you don't have those conversations and you don't get to know, you just have this vision in your head of somebody, and it's like you paint their picture for them,
Right.
Yeah.
which is just not the human experience.
Yeah.
And so I do love that you can just watch their walls come down as they're traveling through a demonic tunnel.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's listening, which is some of my favorite parts of the movie is watching either of us listen to the other person.
And that was you guys were so good at that. And that's something that Luke and I have talked a lot about, in movies. And this is something that I strive for and things I've done and things that hopefully Luke and I continue to do. I want people to talk. I want there to be dialogue. Dialogue now is like, in modern cinema, all too often is like talking about the plot or making a quip. Like that's all characters do. They never say things. They never
I really
talk.
appreciate that, by the way. I love the dialogue in this. Like, that was something, a big dialogue. So I was really into that, and it wasn't just like, it was deep dialogue, like revealing these characters. But,
Well, thanks, thank you. Yeah, that was, and it goes to how good that that excuse me, that Kato and Shayna did, because like you said, it's listening to, like you both responding to each other and working against each other was just exceptional, and that's elevated to what we see.
So you guys find the cast, Bishop and Kato and Shayna, like they were all great. You guys were great.
Yeah.
So how would the casting work, like getting these amazing actors together?
Yeah, so we had an amazing casting director named Sarah Casey.
Casey. Yep.
That's her name.
Yeah, she changed her name.
Just got married.
Yeah, she just got married and changed her name. So.
She's wonderful. She's amazing. And she just gave us basically just so many. I mean, clearly people were hungry to work because we got a lot of audition tapes.
Sure.
And so so they're both Kato and Shayna came from Sarah. And then Bishop has been a friend of mine for a long time.
Yeah.
So Bishop is this. Bishop is just the warmest person I think I've ever met.
Yeah.
This man is just like.
He's such a hype king. Like, he was gassing us up at
he
all
really
turns. He's
is.
like, y'all are great. You're the best.
And
Like,
just having him there for a couple of the days, and then we're like, no, don't go.
yeah, we were really sad when he left.
Can you just stay and hang?
Yeah. Like we were trying to figure out, okay, what is Ray? And my thing was like, Ray is sort of like Ray's gross, but lovable.
Yeah, that's why. Yeah.
So I was like, I need someone who can do that, who can do both.
Yeah.
Is so lovable that his grossness is just kind of funny, and it's okay. and also just like you can tell that even though he's gross, that he also cares.
Yeah.
And that was just Bishop. I was just basically Bishop. Can you just Bishop is not gross.
Bishop is not.
Bishop
is great.
Backing up a little
It's
bit.
the caring. It's the caring that made us also care about Ray. I think.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So
Yeah,
it was really important.
I was really sad what happened to Ray. So
I know. Everyone is.
I know.
I know. Everyone wants more Ray. I do too, actually.
Had to kill zombie Ray though.
Yeah.
Couldn't keep coming back.
only 3 times.
Only 3 times.
So speaking more of the pandemic, what was the most challenging aspect to filming in the pandemic besides keeping quarantine and that sort of thing?
Testing every 3 days.
So this was early days. So there's no when we were doing this in August 2020, there were I think DGA and SAG were just coming out with their COVID rules, and we just everything was different. SAG was different than DGA.
Sure.
Nobody was making stuff, so nobody knew how to make stuff during a thing. So we had to kind of figure it out. So we did a lot of testing, like she said. Fortunately, where we were, there was plenty of testing available. And really, it was just like it was kind of like we separated the crews into different tiers. So there were tiers that couldn't interact with the actors because the actors had to go maskless in a lot of scenes.
Sure.
So we wanted to protect the actors as much as we could. A lot of masks and face shields, and like I said, so basically the way that the set worked is that we were in basically an old shipping and retail space. So the whole front of the building, which used to be retail, we transformed into a base camp that had stations that were all like 10 to 20 feet apart.
Okay.
So every person on the crew had a station they could eat at, they could relax at, and it was literally just like down the hall from the warehouse, which is where we built all the sets. So the entire movie is done on a set. Everything in
Oh,
that
I was
movie
about to
is-
ask about that. Yeah.
yeah, except for the exterior, which we filmed across the street, basically.
Yeah.
Everything was done there. So the whole crew quarantined on one level of a hotel, and basically nobody could leave. We basically bubbled it. So
Like
we had,
if you forgot your toothbrush,
Yes.
you had to have runners who would like leave a bag on your door.
Yeah.
And, yeah.
and like
Deliver your meals.
Yeah.
Yeah, normally on a movie set, you provide some meals, but not all meals,
Yeah.
right? We had to provide all meals because we basically had to tell everyone, you cannot go anywhere. And yeah, so I mean, everyone was in for it, and that was amazing. Like, I think everyone was just so hungry to work that they were willing to make those sacrifices, which was just amazing. But it was actually kind of interesting. Like, it made it kind of special, you know. Like we had a stronger, quicker bond. I
I think
like
we
a
have an
familiar
experience
bond.
too that nobody, like, I don't think anybody else will have, because it's just vaccinations have changed things. And
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Sure. We didn't have vaccination. That's a good point.
I mean, meals were kind of lonely, but it's okay.
We would
Yeah.
like congregate on the rooftop was the only place that we were allowed to do it because it was outdoors. So
Yeah.
we'd like sit and we'd like have our chairs
But even
6
then,
feet apart and
I
like
think
eating
Sarah
pizza.
would tape out.
Yeah, we had
on
like
the-
taped out squares on the parking lot roof. Like
Yeah. So it was challenging, but you know, it was also rewarding. I think there's a lot of good things that came out of it as well.
So how long did it take to shoot?
So we had.
The age-old question.
Yeah, originally we had 12 days, and we added an extra day, so 13 in total, which is it's insane.
That sounds like just a quick shoot. Like you had to get so much
Oh, yeah.
done a day. Yeah.
yeah, I think we were
Insane.
down like including weekends. We all lived there for about a month.
Yeah, because we quarantined for 7 days.
Oh, right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's true.
Pre-shooting.
Yep.
Just in a hotel room, just feeling a little crazy.
Yeah, we got a little squirrely.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna get into a few general questions. Just to,
Sure.
so, what are your biggest influences if I get around the table?
Ooh.
Biggest influences?
Yeah.
Like
Gosh.
creatively?
I know this is a hard question. It's like asking
Yeah.
favorite movie, which I'm about to ask. but-
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean, I know off the bat.
Yeah, go.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like ties into everything we talk, including color. A lot of the things we've been talking about is, for me, is Guillermo del Toro. Like,
Yeah.
he's a guy who everything he makes, not only is he, I think, one of the best there is, but everything he makes is so thoroughly precise, cinematically, with color and story and character. But like, he is so earnest. And that's where Luke and I talk about. We get this from him. He is so earnest. Like, Shape of Water is about, this is a movie about a woman who fucks a fish and it won an Academy Award.
Why should we care?
Why should we care? And he makes everything because he cares about every single thing, and he never plays it anything other than 100% honest, you know, like about like these characters and the situations and the themes and the stuff that he's doing. And he tells stories, not only the earnestness of it, but he's clear. He has clarity of story and clarity of cinematic, the language of cinema. Like, you watch his movies, and he's showing and telling you everything you need to know. It's utter beautiful clarity, and I just aspire to that so much, because I want that. I want people to see the movies I contribute to making and walk out knowing what they were trying to say and trying to do through the story and also through the visual cinematic language. And I don't know who does that better than Del Toro.
It was beautifully shot. So I mean, this is a beautiful movie.
Oh, thank you.
It is. It really is.
You guys
I'll just say, I mean, so I am primarily a theater person.
Okay.
At least that is just where I come from.
Sure.
This was my very first feature film. And so like my inspiration, I mean, I watch an ungodly amount of content, but like that aside, like my inspiration is always drawn from the theater scene of Chicago.
Yeah.
I am just like I could like get emotional about it because there's just like so many beautiful artists there, and like the amount of storytelling that is just like next level. That just keeps me going personally, and like, you know, being a part of that community and then like getting to transfer that into now the film fam and bringing my skill set from theater and seeing how that transfers is kind of what I pull a lot of things from.
Yes, I second what Shayna said. I also started off in theater, and this was my second feature. And I think that honestly, our theater backgrounds really created that atmosphere of being able to listen to each other, because when you're doing a play, you know, you don't get to pause and like go back and start the takeover again. You do have to listen. You have to be present with your scene partner the whole time. And I agree. I think there's an incredible tenacity and fearlessness that goes into the Chicago performance scene across the board: theater, drag, burlesque, like everything. I come from also a burlesque background. And also a huge, like, I'm a big cosplay nerd. I'm a big nerd.
Sure.
So a lot of my, you know, I have a deep love for D&D. I have a deep love for any kind of nerd culture and comic books. And, you know, when I saw that who were the writers on this, I was like, you've got to be kidding me. This is a dream come true, and I'm playing a stripper, and like we're fighting demons. So I think that it felt so special to me to be able to use a part of me that used to be really made fun of, to like bring that to the forefront and say like, no, like sex work is work, being a nerd is really cool, and being really present also with a character who is problematic in and of her own right because she's complex and she doesn't have all the answers and she's not always right, but that there is a lot of love and heart behind her. I think I'm very influenced by seeing characters like that. I think this film encompassed a lot of things that are so near and dear to my heart that I will never forget this process. It was so beautiful.
Yeah, so I want to answer this carefully because I don't want to compare myself to people.
Oh yeah.
So I'll try to like do it in a way that I think I'll talk about influences for this film specifically.
Okay.
John Carpenter is one for sure, because I love, and it was really important for us for this film specifically to do this sort of simple, single location type of thing. I love movies like that. I love movies where you take the setting and you just pare it down as much so that all you're really left with is just character dynamics and that kind of thing. It's just like, you know, I think sometimes limitations actually breed more creativity.
Absolutely.
And I think John Carpenter is a brilliant example of movie after movie after movie taking simple concepts and just blowing them up creatively. So that was a big one for me. I'm trying to think. Spielberg. I'm a huge Spielberg disciple.
Sure.
From my youth, I mean, he was the god when I was growing up in the '80s that you looked up to. He was the new Hitchcock, and I think still is. But also, just as I grew up, it was, you know, you watch Spielberg from the point of view of populist film, but then you realize that he's doing things that nobody else is doing in the way that he moves the camera.
Sure.
And not just moves the camera, but moves the actors and the camera. And so it was interesting because with this film, we didn't have a lot of space.
Right.
Like, for instance, you know, half of it we were shooting in an 8x8 box. And so you have to find ways, like, to me, the camera has to be moving.
Yeah.
And you have to find ways to do that it's not, number one, repetitive, and number two, that it's cinematic, meaning that it draws you in, right?
And
you,
lend
but you
itself
don't
to the
notice
story,
it.
too. I think you did that a lot.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is dancing with the actors. I think one of my favorite scenes in the movie is one where you're telling the David story, and we start in this, the camera travels from a two shot.
Yeah.
And then she comes into the forefront. You're in the background. It moves. There's a constant dance between the actors and the camera, and I think that's a lot of Spielberg that comes through there. Like that's the goal. And then finally, I think just like Soderbergh.
Oh yeah.
Because Soderbergh is unlike anybody else in terms of not just efficiency of storytelling. It's very similar in ways, but also the way that So Soderbergh actually, interestingly enough, loves to work with theater actors. I know when he did The Knick, he basically picked up mostly theater actors because he wants the actors to sort of take a lot of the responsibility of what's happening. He wants to be able to trust the actors to sort of do what they're meant to do.
Collaborate.
And I think theater really kind of demands that in a lot of ways, right? Like when you're doing a show, you don't get to stop and hear if the director's okay with it. You're having to take on a lot of responsibility. So that's a big thing, I think, for me as well, and something that I was trying to aspire to with this.
So it's just airing your film festival. Is there distribution or anything like that, so more people can see it? And that works, it's tough.
Cannot say, but very soon.
Okay.
We will be hopefully announcing something very soon.
Okay.
I don't know the exact date, but yes. The answer to that question is yes. I just can't give you details.
Sure.
People will readily be able to see it.
Very.
In time.
Okay,
Yes.
great, because I want to watch it again.
We would like for you to do that.
Please do.
And I'll be, telling everyone about this.
Thank you.
Goodness,
Wow, thank you.
So kind.
So this is the last question, and you don't have to answer it. It's a little hard to answer. But do you guys have a favorite movie, like something that's consistent on your top 10? I know that like it's pretty amoebas, it can change from day to day.
Yeah.
But do you have one that's consistently up in that top 10?
Man.
I know. I'm sorry, I asked the question.
No, it's a great question. It's a great question because it makes you think about it. Because it's like if you have to choose one, I mean, I'm sure we all can think of like my mind immediately goes to like here and there, to a lot of Spielberg, a lot of Spielberg.
Right.
So it's a great question. I mean, if there's one movie, I don't know. I'm such a Del Toro nerd. I would probably live in Crimson Peak for the rest of my life.
Yes, that's great.
I mean, speaking of, just clarity and color. I mean,
gorgeous.
just it's a gorgeous movie, so perfectly executed. It touches on a lot, Gothic, which is I'm a huge fan of Gothic horror. I adore it probably more than anything, especially that period, that Victorian late 20th century, or I'm sorry, early 20th century.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
Can you write one? Let's do it. I want to do a vampire.
Do the witch too.
Call Luke.
I need that in my life so
Yes, I
bad.
need it. We all do it. Shayna and I just looked at each other like,
Just like history, Shakespeare, Victorian nerd.
please.
I love it. Stuff like that, and also this thing. Take Spielberg with me. Indy. I don't know how I live with Raiders of the Lost Ark. I don't know.
Yes. Oh my God, that was one of the first thoughts. Was the
Because it's so fun, it's just like so pure, I think Crimson Peak, I guess. So basically, I just watch Guillermo del Toro exclusively. It seems like there's other movies.
I have a favorite movie.
Okay.
It is embarrassing, and I don't care. But it is something that I've watched probably like once a month or like a handful of times a year since I was in the second grade, and it's Titanic, and I will bring it with me to the grave.
No shame on that.
Yeah, it's a great movie.
I developed a weird history fascination with it, and the movie is just like a comfort item to me, which is, I know, a strange comfort item, but
No, that
not.
movie is an easy watch.
Yeah, it's legit good, so you don't feel bad about it.
I've never seen that.
True confessions. I've never seen it.
there's half of this table hasn't seen it, and I'm gonna
So we're
fucking
going to
die.
go watch it.
It ruined Shayna when she found out I had never seen it, and it's a point of pride that I'm in my mid 30s and I've never seen it.
I take it really personally, and I know I shouldn't, but I take everything personally.
We have to do a Rocky Horror Titanic.
Yes, Rocky Horror Titanic double
Strangest
feature.
double feature.
I think that is a beautiful
That's
double feature.
brilliant.
I ask my wife all the time if she's seen a movie, and it's almost always no. So I'm just
Wait.
I'm at the point now, I'm like, I guess I know we're doing this afternoon. So the Force Ghostbusters and stuff on her like that. So.
Nice.
Ghostbusters forever.
Nice.
Are you waiting?
Oh,
for me
I
to
don't
answer,
know.
or you want to answer?
I don't care. Whatever you want.
Do you know?
I have several, but I have a top
Yeah,
one.
well, that's the problem. I have a top 500. So
Oh,
yeah.
this is an
Easily
extremely,
Top 500 for sure.
extremely hard question. Okay, so there's. I'm gonna give you two.
Okay, great.
The first one that I think is probably easily in my top 10 that actually inspired this film a little bit is Paris, Texas.
Okay, yeah.
Yes,
Wim
there you
Wenders.
go. Yeah.
Love that movie. There's something so magical and enchanting about that movie.
That was in the mood.
Beautifully
Yeah.
shot.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Beautifully shot. And yeah, that's what we studied it because it was one of the few films that had peep booths
Yeah.
in it. And so that was interesting. But then I'll kind of tell you the one that I'm just like my comfort food movie, the movie that I just have to go to all the time, and you know what it is probably. It's That Thing You Do.
I love this about
That's
you.
a great
Oh my
movie.
God.
It's so good.
I love that
It's
movie
amazing.
so much.
Yeah.
That's the movie we were talking about. There's no villain.
There's no villain.
Yeah.
Yes, there's no. Yeah, that movie is infinitely so watchable, and yet there is no actual conflict in it.
Which makes it, also comforting to watch. You know?
Yeah, exactly. It's easy to watch,
Yeah.
but the characters are so good. But you kind of hear all the time like story has to have conflict in it, and that kind of breaks the mold because the only conflict really is just worrying that they're not gonna last.
Yeah.
Which they don't. But even then, it's not that big of a deal
Yeah.
because the ride's so much fun. So yeah, I don't know. That movie is amazing to me.
Yeah, there was something profound about it too. Is that we were talking about last night. We're going through this experience of doing this premiere and all this anticipation, and it's something that's so. I never thought about this movie. That's so profound that like things happen in life, and then they end, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then life keeps going, and we have this experience all together. The last 2 days, and now it's not going to happen again. We're not going to be nervous in the lobby of the cinema
tasting the
waiting
lobby.
for.
I
Yeah.
tried to keep that in mind a lot last
Yeah.
night of like be in the moment.
Yeah.
Be here for
And
it.
just like remember what this feels like.
Right.
Yeah.
Because like you'll never get to watch, like that was my first time seeing it
Oh,
last
wow.
night.
Yeah.
So like I will never get to watch that for the first time again.
Right.
You know?
And that's what that movie does so well. They were a band for a little while, and then they weren't.
Yep.
And that's it.
Quite beautiful.
I have several because I am also a movie nerd. Of course, like Indiana Jones is
sure.
fully on there, except for the fourth one. It doesn't exist. The original Star Wars trilogy.
On repeat.
On repeat.
Yeah.
That was my brother and I are huge. Like the reason I am a big nerd is because of my brother, and that is like a big bonding. Those sets of movies,
Right.
Ghostbusters, Jurassic Park. But I will say that my comfort movie, my like moment of shame and pride movie is the 1999 classic The Mummy, starring Brendan Fraser
Sure.
and Rachel Weisz, because I will die on that hill.
yeah.
That is a queer awakening
Yeah.
story, and I don't care who says otherwise, because the casting director was like, let's make this gay as hell. Here, everyone have all the feelings. So I will watch that on repeat,
Amen.
shamelessly. That is one of my favorites.
That was Tomb Raiders for me.
Ooh, there you go. Yes, everyone has a Lara Croft moment, I think. Everyone.
Oh my god.
So I want to thank you so much for talking to me. It was
Yeah,
really
thank
a
you.
thrill to have you guys on.
Thank you so
And,
much for having
I'll
us.
be, espousing reviewer, and we keep
Thank
out
you.
when it comes out.
Oh,
So
thank you.
thanks for being on the show, guys.
Thank you so much for
Thanks,
having us.
wonderful.
Yeah.
Thanks so much.
All right, guys, that was my talk with the guys who made Reviewer. I know it sounded a little rough, but hey, what are we gonna do? Just still to lobby, whatever. But if you guys want to see it, I hope you do. Go ahead and cancel plans for the 5th, May 5th, and go see Reviewer at Screen and Armor at 9:15 during Panic Fest. I hope you guys do that, and thanks for listening to the show. We'll have more content of Panic Fest soon. Thanks, guys.